Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because we have somebody on the show today who is going to give us perspectives that are utmost important when we start talking about really not just the future, but where we are today. Patrick Schwerdtfeger was born and raised in Vancouver, Canada, and is the youngest of 4 kids. He has 2 older sisters and a brother. His parents were together throughout his entire lifetime, but now they have since passed. As a young child, Patrick can be found exploring and talking to as many different people as possible, always looking to find new perspectives and a new treasure he had not found before. Patrick was never very good at school, and in grade school and high school, he had issues, and his sisters and brothers were very smart in winning lots of scholarships and awards. Patrick always wanted to learn from the real world and real people operating within the real world, and applying that is something that he was able to do when he went into his college years. But he was very happy to finish that. Patrick's degree is in finance and spent his early career in that field ranging from banking and real estate. But he became self-employed in 2002 and learned about marketing, and it was that learning process that led him to start teaching others, write books, and eventually develop a career as a professional speaker. Patrick is the author of Anarchy, Inc., Profiting in a Decentralized World with Artificial Intelligence and Blockchain. Also, he is the author of the award-winning Keynote Mastery, the personal journey of a professional speaker, as well as Marketing Shortcuts for the Self-Employed, Verify Your Business, Internet Marketing Secrets for the Self-Employed, and Make Yourself Useful, Marketing in the 21st Century. He has been featured by the New York Times, LA Times, San Francisco Chronicle, CNN Money, Reader's Digest, Fortune, Bloomberg Business, and the Associated Press, Money Magazine, Forbes, and many others. Patrick currently lives in Newport Beach, California, with his girlfriend Nadia and her son Luke. Patrick Schwerdtfeger, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
Yeah, I sure am, Jim. I'm thrilled to be with you.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. Now, I've given my Legion a little bit about you, but can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Yeah, sure. I mean, boy, I think all of us, probably for the first time in history, we've got 7.6 billion people all focused on the same problem. God certainly has our attention. The entire world, everyone is focusing on one problem, which is the pandemic and the quarantine and the economic collapse. It's incredible what they've done, of course. I'm not saying it shouldn't have been done, but there's some pretty significant consequences. But that is my focus too. So I've written 5 books, but the 6th one is just a week and a half away. It's about the pandemic and how businesses can survive. So, and I need to do this too, Jim. It's my revenue immediately went to 0 as a professional speaker. All the events were canceled. So now in the meantime, it's a process of content development and trying to figure out where we stand and how do we navigate these troubled times. And now the business is starting to come back. But we all have that responsibility, right? We all have, as business people, it is up to us to make sure that we're relevant and that we're providing value. And that's what I'm working on right now.
Well, and, as you're talking, I start thinking about one of the things that you mentioned in this book, and I'm sure it leads and continues upon that pathway and journey, is that you talk about this getting caught off guard, right?
Yeah.
The whole off guard component is, really something that if we did take the opportunities to step back and look and review, we can't necessarily get all of the surprises, but we could be potentially better prepared than so many are today. And when you start talking about anarchy, and I think that's also one of those things that's going to be very surprising for a lot of organizations. I think we really need to get some insight into what do you mean by anarchy?
Yeah, well, just to kind of respond to the first part of your question, technology and so many things today are evolving along an exponential curve. And as human beings, that is not, that is counterintuitive. We are hardwired as human beings to think in linear terms. You see it, you imagine a football quarterback, for example, you're throwing a ball to a guy who's running, like you can anticipate where that guy is going to be in 2 or 3 seconds. Very hard to do that when you're talking about exponential change, because at the beginning, the whole thing seems insignificant and like it's not even worth paying attention to. But then all of a sudden it turns the corner, and all of a sudden it's going so fast you can't keep up anymore. And that's really what's happening right now. And these business leaders and executives, boy, they are smart people. They've got the best education in the world, but they have what they call institutional blindness, right? They're focused on their goals, and so you become blind to what's happening outside of your field of vision. And then all of a sudden, these exponential technologies come along and they sneak up on you, and before you know it, they're going so fast you can't catch up anymore. That's the whole, a lot of my work as a speaker really boils down to disruptive innovation and how do we anticipate it? How do we profit from disruptive innovation? And you really have to coach yourself. I do it, literally every day, and this is my full-time gig, is to think, no, what if it was 10 times as powerful as it is today? Or what if it was 100 times as powerful? Or maybe more importantly, what if this technology cost 1/10 of what it costs today? Or 1/100th of how many of my competitors would use this technology if it would cost 1/100th of what it costs today, right? And so then you can start to think this way a little bit more. But your actual question pointed to the title of the book, Anarchy, Inc., and how do we deal with that? So a lot of the book is about decentralization, and in almost every field, things are decentralizing. Right, decoupling, becoming more tribal. Our social dynamics. The social media world has created that. The influencer world and information marketers and gurus. Everyone's got their own opinion, and it's getting more and more fractured. So anarchy, to me, the actual definition of it, it doesn't mean there's fighting in the streets. It doesn't mean we've got gun battles in our neighborhoods. But what it does mean is that people aren't respecting a single authority, right? No one's respecting a single hierarchy that everyone agrees on. So, maybe the best example today is the media environment. And you're part of that, Jim. You've built a following, and people follow you, and they like your opinion, right? And there's millions of these people, the influencers. And so we used to have maybe a dozen media platforms that 90% of the people got their news from one of these 12 or whatever it was. But today, we literally have millions between blogs and podcasts and YouTubers and TV channels and magazines. My gosh, it's endless, right? And everyone's calling everyone else fake news. Like, it's not like there's only one. It's not like only the conservative people are calling liberal fake news, or the liberals are calling conservative fake news. Everyone's calling everyone else fake news. That's anarchy. Like, we're already there. So I'll kind of finish my answer with the one thing that to me really defines the whole experience, which is that we're increasingly living in a world with multiple realities and multiple versions of the truth. And that is incredibly important to understand, because it means that you have to pick your truth and stand firm and defiant and boldly proclaim your truth to your people, and don't worry about what everyone else says. The haters and the people because inevitably there is no one truth, right? The alternative facts, they're everywhere. So you can no longer win on the facts. What you have to win on is your confidence and your conviction in your truth. And there's, some people love Trump, some people hate Trump. That's fine. I have no dogs in that race. But he does model this. He has his truth, and he doesn't care what anyone else thinks. And so we can learn from that. Even if you hate his politics, it's fine with me. But he's modeling that every single day, with his, exaggerations or whatever you want to say about his facts. But the bottom line is he doubles down whenever he's challenged, and he is defiant in his truth. And his followers are more loyal to him than any other politician I can think of. So that's a model we can follow that model in business.
As you're talking, and you said a couple of words that I think are critically important here. One is that tribe, element.
Yeah.
One is, that you can't, another is that you just can't please everyone. And so when I start thinking about that from a leadership perspective, when I start thinking about that from a customer experience perspective, I often see that, people try to, or they don't know what their place is. They don't know what their tribe is, and they can't convey that. And so therefore they end up serving no one and providing, a good experience to anyone. I mean, it sucks for everyone. So when I start thinking, though, is that I'm already in this place. I'm already, I have all these potential disruptors coming in. I have this, customer anarchy, because now they want things decentralized. They want this. Hey, I got this over here and I didn't have to pay for it. Like I was just talking to my neighbor who was a trader, back in the 80s. And she said, we used to have to carry paper tickets for our orders and go take them to the trading desk. And I mean, how many of those people back then ever thought that it would be free trades, right? I mean, to think about that is just totally mind boggling. So,
well, I mean, the change is, I mean, there's 1,000 examples where you compare, what we've gone through in our lives. I mean, I'm 49 years old, and it is just stunning, like how much has changed. But the bottom line is, we're going to change more in the next 12 months than we did in the last 12 years. I mean, you ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, we are just getting started, and now with the pandemic and quarantine and the fear that's really evolving with people, we're business leaders. Failure to adapt is failure to exist. I mean, you need to adapt. Everyone needs to adapt, and if you don't, someone else is going to come in and take your place. Now, that's also an enormous opportunity. Change is opportunity. Right? The whole equation of a successful business is to find a problem and fix it. We haven't had this many problems in a long time. So, finding a problem is easy to do. So, going out there and fixing problems and being a solution, heroes will be made as a result of this pandemic. But the bottom line is that we need to state our truth clearly and defiantly and pick the market that we're after and stick with it. And that's, this is a time of bold leadership. There was an Italian economist who back in the 1930s wrote a quote that I forget his name. A lot of people have cited the quote recently, and it goes something like this. I probably have it a little bit wrong, but he said, "The old world is dying. The new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters." 1930s. So you can imagine back in those days, he was probably referring to people like Stalin or Mussolini or Hitler. But the bottom line is, this is a time of bold leadership because there's so much change. Like you can picture, for example, 95 blocks or 100 blocks, right? That's like your life is the economy, your world is 100 blocks. Normally, 95 of them are nailed down. They're not moving. They're stationary. And there's 5 that are in motion. Today, it's exactly the inverse of that. Right? There's only 5 that are nailed down. Everything's in motion. Everything's changing, right? And that's very scary. It causes a lot of anxiety within our population, and certainly people are feeling that. I am. They're not sleeping well. They're freaking out, right? The stock market's plunging. So all these things are realities we're digesting. But at the same time, there's huge opportunity, and the bold leaders, the people who can step up and envision a better tomorrow, they will gain traction because people are desperate for guidance and desperate for leadership. So that's why I wrote my next book. I'm like, I have to do it now because people want someone to follow. They're desperate for solutions and answers. And that's what you're doing too. So the more we go out and provide value and help people, especially at a time right now when so much is variable and changing, there's a lot of opportunity.
Well, and with that, for me, I'd like to take some of those complex type of concepts and all of that and try to make it something that we can actually, make some movement on. You and I, before we actually started recording, we talked about, hey, man, just move, right? You don't stand still.
Yeah.
Don't nest. Don't go under the rock. You got to move. I mean, that movement and the whole inertia associated with that is so critically important in the learning opportunity. So we talk about Doug Conant, who was on the Fast Leader Show, former CEO of Campbell Soup, talked about 3 different types of competency that we have to focus in on, and he actually has a little model that you can evaluate upon. He talks about intelligence. We all know IQ. EQ, which is I'm certified in EQ, emotional intelligence, and and that's important. But then he also talks about functional intelligence. And so the functional intelligence is, hey, how well do you know your market? How well do you know your business? How well do you know? It's all that, really that tactical components and elements. But and all of those things, I need all of those things in order to have a tribe that wants to follow me, in order to have, commitment and connection and purpose and drive and survivability and adaptability. All that is necessary. But if we talk about, an environment such as this where there's a problem with the whole functional intelligence. Hey, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, how do I keep people engaged?
Well, I mean, you pivot every single day. I mean, so the more you try, right? Look, I mean, I've made more mistakes than anyone I know. But why is that? It's because I've tried more things, right? And so and at the end of the day, you're going to have a batting average. Some things that you're going to try are going to work. Most are not. Just this morning, literally this morning, I just came back from I got a coffee. I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone. He started a pest control business, right? And he's booming. And he just started it a year ago. So brand new. It's in Boise, Idaho. Anyway, this is classic. This is the way I think, and this is the way all of the people that I, in my close circle, we all really try to think this way. So, I think business plans are completely useless. Because you don't know, like maybe you're doing 20 steps. The only step you actually have any reliability on is step number 1. And you don't know step number 2 until you're finished step number 1, right? And so you have to try, you have to take action. And it's not about, it's what I said earlier before we started recording. It's not like I'm saying, work 18 hours a day like Elon Musk. I have huge respect for Elon Musk, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is try something, anything, get out there and do something. And once you finish step 1, step 2 will present itself to you at that point. So my buddy, he tried like 5 different marketing strategies, and he put money towards all 5 of them. 4 of them failed. 1 of them worked. And so then what did he do? He took the money from the other 4 that were failed and reallocated them to the one that was working and doubled down on it. He never would have known. Like if you did a best business plan and say you have to do this marketing or these 5 you don't know which one's going to work. And it's not that some are better strategies than others. It's that we all have different businesses, different voice, different personalities, different demographics, different markets that we're serving. So different platforms are going to be, we just don't know. You don't know until you try. And so he tried all 5. 4 of them basically failed. And then 1 of them really worked very well. So he reallocated funds, doubled down, he adjusted his website to accommodate for that marketing strategy, and he's booming. So anything like, let's say I try something, and I do this all the time, right? I have 700 videos on YouTube and 6 books. And, so I'm constantly, throwing stuff against the wall. And have I got a lot of, like advice out there that turned out to be not true? Yeah, absolutely. You'll find tons of it. But the people who have come across my content, I think if there is an appreciation that they have, it's that I keep calibrating and I keep pivoting and I keep learning. And I'm the first one to say, look, I suggested something, a year ago, and it's wrong. I was wrong. And here's why, and here's what I suggest now. So we all need to do that. But being willing to try things and being willing to be a bold leader. This is a time of we need bold leadership, and passion sells, right? This is not new. This is 2,000 years ago, right? I mean, if the passionate politicians are the ones that get votes. The passionate musicians are the ones that sell albums, right? The passionate businesses. Look at Apple. They defiantly support the rebels and the misfits, right? People love them for that. And so, having conviction and passion about your beliefs and being willing to go out and try things. Apple's tried lots of things that failed, but they keep trying and they keep coming back. They keep coming back and just going after their goals. People have respect for that more today than ever.
So as you're talking, I even start thinking about, the book and the way that you've broken it down. And to me, and you talk about that step, and making that movement. There's really 6 things that you talk about are trends that we need to be aware of, which I think can really assist or aid in that passion building area. Because even if I'm a middle manager, okay, or I'm a frontline manager, I still have to, some people may say, well, I don't have to have all that. I don't need to be bold. Heck no, I'll get in trouble, right? All of those things start running through people's head, and they're very, fear-based. And then when you have situations that we're in now, it just magnifies the problem. But I think getting some functional intelligence and understanding in these 6 core areas will get us a little bit better prepared. So you talk about, costs. When costs collapse, that innovation thrives. You talk about AI, artificial intelligence, in the different waves. You talk about jobs and job impact. You talk about blockchain, and then you talk about anarchy, and then you also talk about demographics. And so when I start thinking about those, if you could just kind of run through those a little bit to help everybody understand what you're meaning.
Yeah, thank you, Jim, for going through my book. I truly appreciate that. So the costs, we just spoke just a moment ago. Technology is evolving along an exponential curve. So we all kind of know that, that curve that we've all seen a million times, where it goes up and to the right. And of course, that's what it does. But it's the inverse of that which is so important, right? And that's what no one thinks about. And that is that the cost of any one capability goes down towards zero very, very quickly, right? More quickly than people think. So when I said earlier, like, what if this technology cost 1/100th of what it costs today? That happens, right? So the cost of, and in technology, there's kind of the 3 big ones, which is data storage, data bandwidth, and data processing. Those are like the 3 pillars of technology. And the cost curve of those is really coming down very, very quickly. So, there's 1,000 examples, right? The cost of storing 1 terabyte of data in the year 2000 was $17,000. Today it costs $3 in Amazon Web Services. So, you've all heard these. There's 1,000 examples. But the costs are coming down really, really quickly. So like solar panels, for example. Solar panels have come down in price 90% in the last 5 years. It's come down 99%, 99.7 or something, 99.7% reduction since the 1970s. Like, it is astonishing what's happening. And so, that's going to grow. It's going to continue to grow. And another perfect example right now is this impending automobile revolution, which is going to involve 2 primary trends. One is autonomous driving, but the second is the transition from gas vehicles to electric vehicles. And the cost of batteries, which is the most expensive part in an electric vehicle. By the way, gas vehicles have on average 2,000 moving parts. Electric vehicles have less than 100. That's a 95% reduction in moving parts of an electric vehicle. So we're talking about a complete disruption of the automotive supply chain and aftermarket service markets. Is completely going to change. And servicing electric vehicles is much cheaper. But the most expensive part is the battery. And right now it's coming down in price between 12 and 14% each year. And that's being driven by the billions and billions and billions of dollars being invested in the technology by people like Tesla and their gigafactories, right? And Panasonic and so on. So the cost curve is coming down predictably, like they all do, everything that's technology related. So the costs come down. So you can map out when an electric vehicle will literally be cheaper. And by the way, this doesn't even account for the fact that electricity is 90% cheaper than gas on a per mile basis. So to charge up your electric vehicle costs 1/10 what it costs to fill up your tank with gasoline. So a totally, totally different mind. So gas vehicles are gone within 5 years. And you can put my name on that, because within 3 years, it's literally going to be cheaper to buy electric vehicles than gas. And by 2025, it's not like it's going to be replaced by individuals buying cars. It's going to be replaced by fleets buying 100,000 cars at a time, because it's going to be transport as a service. So anyway, costs are coming down. And data is exploding, and that's what's driving artificial intelligence. We can talk about that. That's that's affecting one industry after another. And it's guaranteed to, just like going back to the 1960s and 70s, people added electricity to everything. You have a lawnmower with electricity, you have a toothbrush with electricity. everything has electricity all of a sudden. Today, it's AI. AI is being added to everything. Everything's going to have AI. And we're in the middle of that right now. So that's happening. Blockchain is the technology behind Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And that's, believe me, this, if the wheels come off of the economy, with the monetary easing and the central bank and the ECB just money printing and quantitative easing, if the credit-based monetary system breaks, I'm not saying it will, but it could. The risk is there and it's growing. If that happens, the winner will be Bitcoin. And that's a decentralized platform, right? But blockchain is by design decentralized. Very similar to the open source movement, by the way. Also a decentralized, very similar between looking at blockchain opportunities in the future. You can compare it to open source, maybe about 10 years, 15 years ahead. So you can model open source to see what's going to happen with blockchain. But likely a lot of similar things. And then the anarchy is what we discussed earlier. Anarchy is a function of decentralization. The two are synonyms to me almost. So as decentralization grows, this feeling of anarchy also grows, and this tribal nature where there's multiple versions of the truth. That all is stemming from decentralization, which is enabled by technology, including blockchain. And the last thing, demographics, is kind of a different topic. If you want to dig into that, we certainly can. But the technology piece is really the driving force behind all of this. And leaders have to learn that you can't, like what you said earlier, Jim, you hit the nail on the head. You can't please all people. You have to pick your truth and stand defiantly in your truth. And that's what's going to, the moderate voices get drowned out. They disappear in the noise. So that, unfortunately, it leads to a more polarized society. So there's a lot of downsides, and I absolutely see those downsides, but it's a reality. And so leaders have to get used to that and understand that dynamic.
So as you're talking, I started even thinking about all these 6 different factors. And for me, and my heart, it has always been in that employee experience and that customer experience. And I, in my industry, in the contact center space, customer experience space, they talk so much about AI in the contact center. I'm actually working on a webinar series with the PACE Association on AI in the contact center and that customer perspective of AI. And so the whole adoption piece, what different verticals, can get and receive the most benefit from using AI, because it varies. We have all of these different types of emotional connection, which is kind of what you're talking about. Drive, picking my lane, emotional connection, all of that. So how you deploy, you even talked about the different perspectives and deployments can be quite different. But if I'm looking at these 6 elements and 6 items and I'm focusing specifically on the customer, where do you see really the biggest impact?
Well, I mean, what you said a second ago struck me. It's funny, like when I'm speaking, you have ideas, and when you speak, the same goes in reverse. But, we're all different. We're all increasingly different. And even now, like we see, so let me start with an example, because I have a friend of mine who he has one of the leading platforms in the medicinal marijuana space, which is not my thing, but whatever, it's a growing space, of course. And he's the host of a video series which they're selling, and so they've done series 1 and series 2, and now they're series 3. Anyway, he goes down to a studio here in Los Angeles area on a regular basis to record these videos, and he does literally hundreds of videos that cater to an audience at different levels of engagement. So you do an initial campaign. People either engage with it or they don't. So all of a sudden, that one group is split into 2. And so now you're going to do the second level of your marketing is going to go to 2 different groups, right? And each one of those is going to either respond to what you sent them or not. And so they split into 2. And then they split into 2. And they split into 2. And before you know it, you literally have dozens and dozens of different market segmented groups, which are at different levels of your marketing and conversion funnel. Right? So people talk about following the customer journey. This is what they're talking about. And it bothers me sometimes when people say following the customer journey, because people listening to that, they don't understand, like, what's the implication? The implication is market segmentation at the extreme and creating a marketing funnel that follows people through their level. So, and I see this in the thing on Instagram or Facebook or there's TikTok, my gosh, they're everywhere. These different things that are being marketed to me. And I follow it because and it's so intuitive. Like I feel like I'm having a one-to-one conversation with this company, that I'm saying something to them, they're saying it back to me, and it makes perfect sense based on what I just said. So there's this intuitive logic and the user experience, right? How logical does this progression seem to me? And that's what we have to learn how to do. And these exclusions. So you do one marketing campaign, it splits into two. So now you're going to exclude this group and only market to this one and have a custom message. And then that's going to get split into two based on what happens. And so now you're going to exclude one half of that and do the other. And so a good friend of mine does this sort of marketing for some really big brands, really incredible campaigns, like I said, that end up with dozens, if not hundreds, of different custom messages going to individuals. And it's all about exclusions and data and following that data. Now, artificial intelligence can look at the people who ended up in a particular spot in your funnel and going back to the original group and trying to understand what characteristics those people have, and then trying to extrapolate and testing with a broader audience. So you get these things like in Facebook or Google. I do a lot of advertising with Google, right? And you can target similar audiences, right? So you have one group that you're targeting, but you can target a similar audience. Well, that similar audience, that is machine learning right there, because the platform will look for similar people, send the advertisement out to them, see if those people engage or not, and then it's learning. What's people always say, what's the difference between analytics and artificial intelligence? Because a lot of what we're talking about is just good algorithms, right? That's all it really is. So what's the dividing line? Well, there's generally two things that people look at. Number one is that it's replicating some sort of human level comprehension, right, which is obvious. But the second is that it has the ability to learn. And so that's what you always have to ask yourself. Does this part of the technology learn from more data? And these similar audiences, they absolutely do. So they run it to people they think are similar. They see who engages and who doesn't. And so that now they've learned something. Oh, these groups, it didn't work here, but it did work here. So then they refine it a little bit more. That's why when you're doing advertising campaigns, like, you have to let it run for a few weeks, right? 2, 3, 4 weeks, a month or two, and let it learn. And it's going to cost you money. There's no question it's going to cost you money. But like with a Facebook pixel, for example, you can put a Facebook pixel on your website. Facebook will track that, and they will learn. That platform will learn about your audience. You have to spend a little bit of money to give it that ability to learn, and then you can, part 2, part 3, part 4 are much more profitable than part 1 because it's learning along the way.
And as you're talking, I start thinking about, really the differentiating factor is, being able to balance all of the human intelligence and the emotional intelligence, the functional intelligence, all of that, and, what you're learning about, all of these possible technologies, so you can do things that only the extraordinary and exceptional do. Now, we could sit back here and say, well, that's just too darn hard, or I'm not smart enough for that, or something along those lines, and self-sabotage. But what would you tell people in order to take a step?
I mean, it's those last two words, right, or 3 words. Take the next step. I mean, you got to throw something against the wall, right? That's what I mean in my mind. That's what I'm thinking when I'm saying, let the advertising campaign run for a while. Like, the functional intelligence those are your tactics, right? Those are your specific how-to. And I love that stuff, right? That's like what I live on that. Take action, try something, do something, right? That's your functional intelligence. But the bottom line is, you don't go in having that functional intelligence. You learn it as you go, right? And so you start a campaign, and then you have to learn from it, right? And you have to try it and keep going. And that's why, how many different things can you try? So people talk about innovation, and that's a huge part of my work. And innovation can really be boiled down to one concept, or let's say 2 words, which is budgeting failure. You have to budget failure. Because innovation implies you're trying something new. You haven't done it before. So if you're, Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, that guy is incredibly brilliant. Whether you like him or not, he's brilliant. And he says, I mean, so many quotes from him, it's endless, but one of them is so simple. If you know it's going to work, it's not an experiment. Because you already know it's going to work. Like if you're going to try something, it means you're trying something you don't know if it's going to work or not, which means it might not, which means you're going to lose money. Right? The amount of money you spent on that experiment, you're going to lose that money. Right? So if you want to be innovative, and you have to be, right? Remember, failure to adapt is failure to exist. So we have to try new things. We have to innovate, which means you need a budget for that. So let's say you have $1 million or 100,000, right? It doesn't matter what it is. Let's say 100,000, right? Do you want to blow all that money on one experiment and do a big, huge experiment? Or do you want to take that money and split it up into 10 small experiments, right? Or what's the minimum viable product? What's the easiest, simplest, cheapest way to test an idea, right? People think you have to develop a product to test it, but that's not true. You can create specs and you can market a product that doesn't even exist just to see if the marketing works, right? And if it works, you can develop the product. If it doesn't, you can forget the idea. So always think like, what's the cheapest, simplest, quickest way to try something new? You know, in Silicon Valley, I lived in the Bay Area for 18 years, and the venture capital world, they're all, and you've heard this before, they're all about fail fastward, fail forward, and iterate towards success. Fail fast, fail forward, learn from it, and iterate towards success. You don't know step 2 until you finish step 1. So this is, I mean, you know, I don't mean to be repetitive at all, Jim, I promise, but to me, it always circles around to this one concept, which is go out and try something and learn, and don't have the arrogance to think that you know how it's going to turn out. Like, I've tried so many things that I thought this is going to work. And I can't tell you, I'm like a professional failure. Like that's what I do. I fail like repeatedly over and over and over again. And so I find these little things where it actually did work. And then I iterate and I keep going built on that. But the amount of failures are staggering along the way.
Well, I have to tell you, you did actually do a lot of things very successfully on this interview, because we asked about an important quote. You shared that. We talk and ask about hump stories. You did that. I mean, you led your way all the way to where we are right now. And that is, we have a couple of other books coming up. And we want to make sure that we stay engaged with those. And as far as you making an impact on the world and helping us being more prepared so that we are not blindsided is something that all of the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best on. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement, along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Patrick, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Patrick Schwerdtfeger, are you ready to hoe down?
Let's give it a try.
All right. So what is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
I mean, the simple answer, time. I mean, I have more things to do than I have time to do them, but that boils down to what we just discussed. What's the easiest, simplest, fastest way to try something? Because if you don't have a lot of time, we all have 24 hours in a day, you got to pack as many experiments into that time as possible.
And what is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Try something. Go out and do something. Anything small. Take a step in the direction of your goals, even when it comes to manifesting and visualization and the law of attraction. What do they say? Take a step in the direction of your goals. Step 2 will reveal itself when you're finished step 1.
And what is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Persistence. I mean, persistence. Again, I've failed so much, and most of the people who I know and who know me, if they went through the things I went through, they just give up. They can't take the ego hit. I've been slapped in the face more times than I can count, but I keep. Success is not about how many times you're hit. It's about how many times you get up afterwards.
And what would be what is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Data. I always follow the data. I mean, and I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for, but I find data in everything I do, and I try to follow the data because I have learned that my intuition, my gut feel is almost never right at the beginning.
And what would be one book that you'd recommend to our Legion? It could be from any genre. Of course, we're going to put a link to AI Anarchy on your show notes page as well.
Yeah. I'm just going to go with The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. 16%, right? How do you get to 16%? It's not about 80%. It's not about 100. It's not about 50. How do you get to 16%? That's the tipping point. Once you get there, the rest takes care of itself.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net, Patrick Schwerdtfeger. But here, just do Patrick in your search bar and you'll be able to find it. Okay, Patrick, this is my last Hump Day Hold On question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25. And you can take knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take it all. You can only take one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you and why?
That's actually a really good question. I think just communication, learning to communicate as effectively as I can. That's the one thing that, I've had recurring nightmares my whole life that I lose my voice. Why? Because my voice and my ability to communicate is communication skills, and more than ever with the young people who are spending so much time on their computers, if you can learn to communicate effectively with people one-on-one or one-to-many, that is the best paying skill on earth. Politicians, salespeople, it's all the same. It all boils down to communication.
Patrick, I had fun with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So my last name is a doozy, but the easiest way to find my website is actually just go to bookpatrick.com, bookpatrick.com, and it will forward to my website. And it's all about speaking and such, but it'll give you an idea of how I spend my time and how I earn my living.
Patrick Schwerdtfeger, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.